All right. Cool. So we are live. The goal for today is to improve this Stripe sample. So we have these checkout one-time payments Stripe sample that shows you how to collect a one-time payment with Stripe checkout. And we have a couple different integrations here. Um, Client and server, client only. And the client and server version has support for a couple of different server languages: Java, Node, PHP with the Slim Web framework, just kind of like vanilla PHP, Python, and Ruby. And we have a pull request for adding Go. Thank you so much, Parmod Aurora, for contributing this. So what I wanted to do today was just kind of go through and first add a test that checks to see if the server code is working as expected. We don't have any tests yet for this sample, so I wanted to add a quick test and then merge this pull request and sort of take a look at the code that we have there, and then add support maybe for .NET, depending on how much time we have. So hopefully this is interesting and useful. So let's get into it. I'm also going to close some of these that are unused for now. Okay, so let's see. The very first thing I wanted to do is just clone this down. So git clone that thing. And then we'll jump into this directory here and go to client and server, cd into server, cd into Ruby. So Ruby is my language of choice here. So I'm going to play around with Ruby first just to like see how things feel. And then once I'm happy with it, I will be we'll write some tests against it. So let's see what we've got here. So first I want to bundle install, and that's installing some things. And then I'm going to copy in my .n file here and Ruby server, fire up the server, and then go to localhost 4242 and see what we've got going on. See, it 404'd probably because my .n file doesn't have the right stuff. So I'm going to open that in a different window so that it's not leaking my keys. So bear with me for just a sec. Okay, so that I believe the static directory needs to be like up one and over, Ruby server, because the client, well, when we're working directly with the raw repository, the client is not a sibling of the server. All right, let's see what's going on here. Did I not write that? Okay. Sorry, let's also make this a little bigger. Okay, so we want to jump into here, into the server, Ruby server. All right, what's going on here? So we are pulling that from there. Okay, and then I also want to just like try curl localhost 4242 just to see what's going on. Okay, so I'm getting back 404. All right, so let's slow down a little bit and check out what's going on. So we're loading our .n files, setting our API key, and then we're setting this to static dir, which should be the client directory, which is up, and over. So, and it also needs to be like /HTML. Okay, so let's see. So there's two different clients here. We have a client for showing HTML. We have a client for showing with React. So what I had before was just coming up and over to client, because that's where it kind of is installed when you install with the Stripe CLI. All right, so now that we've got our client environment variable thing figured out, buy for 0. So this number here is populated based on the price that you enter. So we need to figure out what's going on with our price ID in the environment variables. So let's take a look here and see. So for checkout one-time payments, the price here should be a price. And in my environment variables, I don't have a price set, so I'm going to set that now. Price is equal to, and then we need a one-time price. So here I'm just going to say, I'm going to use the Stripe CLI, Stripe prices list type is one time. I'm going to pipe that to JQ and just grab the first one. So .data 0.id, that should print out a price ID for a one-time price. And I'm going to set that in my environment variables. And then if I restart this, restart the server, I should have a price now. So if I refresh this page, now I see $9.99. So that's looking good. And let's see. So if we buy for $39.96, what is happening now? Let's see here. So if we increase the size of this a little bit and check out our errors, what are our errors? So create checkout session is returning a 500. So from the network tab, when we attempt to click this button, we are, let's see. So we're listening for submit on the button, I believe. So let's go to our sources. And this time we are using script.js, and we are waiting. Let's see, where are we calling redirect to check out here? Okay. So if I click this button, we enter this callback. We're calling create checkout session. So let's drill into that. Now we're going to call, we're making this fetch request to the backend calling create checkout session. And this is what's failing. So we're getting a 500 when we attempt to hit and create a checkout session. So let's actually start the server again and then make that request from -x post localhost 4242 create checkout session. And here from the client, it's passing a quantity and locale. So I'll also do that. Quantity is 1 and locale is en. And see what we get back. We are getting back a 500 because we're getting plus with nil class. So let's check this out. So our create checkout session here is creating a checkout session object. So if the content type's okay, setting it to application JSON, we're parsing the data that came in, and then we're going to use this data here with a quantity, and we should be using the environment variable for the price and the environment variable for the domain. And it's saying that the plus, it's doing plus with nil class, or like the error was related to failing to try to add something to nil. So let's, I'm again going to check out these environment variables, which are suspect. Okay, let's try this again. Start the server. There's some sort of like Sinatra auto reload situation that I know we can use. So yeah, if you're watching and want to tell me what that is, that'd be handy. Let's see. Okay, so refresh the page, click on buy, and hopefully this doesn't fail this time. Let's clear the errors from the console, click play. Hey, it looks like that may have worked. All right, let's click this again. What's going on here? All right, so we're entering the checkout session correctly. We have a checkout session ID. And so what's going on here? see here. Okay. Sometimes when you add breakpoints, there's like a small delay in the redirect, and then it just doesn't work. So now this is working, and I kind of have an idea for what these endpoints should look like. So let's go write a test. So we want to go probably up to just the root of this project, and I'm going to add a spec directory. Actually, let's see. Our spec init, does that work here? No. Our spec dash init. All right, look at that. Okay, so now we have a spec directory. Let's say client and server spec.rb. And here, I'm going to try to follow a pattern that we're using for the subscriptions sample. In the spec helper, we just have like some really basic stuff here. So I'm going to go back to spec helper, add some of these tools at the top, and then down here at the bottom, we added some helpers. So we have a server URL, and then just like a couple of like super basic helpers that are going to make requests to the front end. Really, it's just, we just want to make sure that like when we poke at the server and hit the server endpoints, that it's giving us back the right data. So let's go do that now. Or we've copied these, and let me show you the pattern that we're using in this other Stripe sample for making the request. Our it statement is it just works, and we have, because there's like with the billing example at least, we need certain data to exist as the result of previous steps. So let's just start out at the top with getting, yeah, we should be able to like get the index, and it shouldn't fail. So let's also just try to like get a loop, a nice loop going here. Okay, so yes, so this server is not even running. So let's go start the server. So I'm going to go over to here, check out one-time payments. And so the idea is that like we have all these different servers, right? We have Ruby, Ruby, Java, Node, Python, whatever. And so we want to be able to start up any of these servers and run the tests against them. And we should get all the tests should pass against the server. So we're kind of making a test that's independent and separate from the code that's part of that server's language. We'll just write one test in our spec that will poke at any of these Stripe sample servers and should expect to get the same sort of result back. So if we restart that, all right, so we've got a passing test, and it failed when we didn't have the server running. So I think that's good to go. Let's now try to, let's see. So the very first thing we did that was failing was that we were trying to make a post request to this create checkout session endpoint. We also have a couple other endpoints where we're grabbing the publishable key. So why don't we just like kind of go down the list of endpoints here and add tests for each. So let's make a get request for config. So here we can say get JSON for /config, and we'll set that to response is equal to this now, expect that not to be null. And okay. Now let's just pee out that response. Pee it out, check it out, see what it looks like. Okay, so we got back this public key. And since we know this works, we went through kind of the flow manually. We know that this is working. So let's give this a whirl. Or I'm sorry, let's just test it out like this. So public key, we'll ensure that there's a public key, a unit amount, and a currency. So we want to expect that response.has key, maybe public key, in that sort of camel case, to have key. I think that might be it here. Let's see. Okay, and if I make this something else, then I should not have it. All right. All right, so we also want a unit amount. I should probably like open up this server file so we have an idea of what we're looking at here. So it should have a unit amount and a currency. And the unit amount and currency are defined by the price, which is being retrieved. So we could add some other expectations that like the price was retrieved as expected and has the currency from the price. But for now, I just want like super basic smoke tests here. All right, so let's add yet another one here for this here. So I'm going to get the JSON for this checkout session, where I need to pass in some params, session ID. Am I supporting that yet? Session, I'm just going to say session ID is CS test XX just to see if that will work. So that's going to make a call to retrieve the checkout session from the API, which I think should fail because we don't have a checkout session. Just see what happens. So we'll run it. And let's see. We got a 404 back because, yeah, where did that 404 happen? I think it might have happened as part of attempting to retrieve the checkout session, but I'm not sure. So let's first create a checkout session. Stripe checkout session.create. So how do we want to do this? Yeah. So we should like we kind of maybe want to stub out this checkout session retrieve. So I want to say something like allow Stripe checkout session to receive with, well, yeah, we can just say with and return a thing. All right, let's see if this gets us stubbing. Uninitialized constant stripe. Did you mean string? I didn't mean string. Let's see. Require stripe. Okay, so I'm not sure if this is the right way to do it because we're kind of stubbing out something that's running in a different process. So we don't really have a great way of telling it that the Stripe checkout session is over here. So I'm actually going to skip this. Let's just skip it and come back over to the next one here, which is post JSON. So let's go back to our spec helper. I think we have a helper for posting. So we'll post some JSON. Response is equal to post JSON to create checkout session. And what are we posting? We're posting some data. And the data is, it includes a quantity, 2, and a locale, right? Which is en. All right, let's see what happens here. We want to expect that the response not to be nil. All right, so we run that. We posted a checkout session and got back nothing. So let's take a look at that, what that response looks like. Okay. All right, so we did get back an array. Right, this is kind of like the Sinatra style of return, where we have the response and then the status code. So maybe we can even split these up and say like status, expect the response not to be null, expect the status to equal 200. Technically we're creating stuff, so we could probably, yeah, okay, cool. All right, so I think that's actually what we want. And we want to expect that the response to have key, oh, what does it have again? Session ID like that. Session ID. Okay. All right. I think I'm just going to like call it good there. And at least we have some sort of smoke test thing that we can run against other things. So now what I want to do is take a look at this pull request, and if it looks good, we'll merge it in, and then we can run it against this new test that we have, and then make any modifications we want. Again, thank you so much for contributing this this test here. So let's take a look here. We've got a README, how to run. We want to like install the dependencies. We have to have Go. We have to have a .env file configured, as we kind of like bumped through there in the beginning. All right, so I'm going to mark that as viewed. Let's see. And all right, yeah. So our Go mod file, let's check out what kind of dependencies we have here. All right, some of these are unfamiliar to me, so we'll come back to that in a bit. Actually, yeah, okay. I think we might end up going a different direction here. So we have, it looks like it's using chai as the web server here. Golang chai. Let's see. Lightweight, idiomatic, composable, web framework for building HTTP services. I think in other Stripe samples, we're not actually using a web framework. We might use Echo, but there's some of these we're not even using any web framework at all. We're just kind of like using the HTTP like built in. So here, yeah, we're just using net HTTP. We're not actually using like chai or Echo or any of those. So I think we might want to refactor a bit just to use net HTTP, but let's take a look at kind of the approach that's taken here. So we've got encoding. All right, so we've got encoding JSON. We'll need that for sure. We need the format. We've got all these, okay, some string stuff, and then go.env, that's cool. And then all of these dependencies from Stripe Go, those all make sense. I'm just questioning whether or not we want to use these or if we want to use net HTTP. So we've got struct here for the post body. We're creating a checkout session. Oh, right. And so like here's where we define the routes. So we have the same kind of routes that we do in Ruby. And then we have the static file server. That's all cool. And here in create checkout session, we are saying, let's get a new request body and then decode it. And post body is a little bit of a generic kind of name there. I think we might, well, if it's private, then it's fine with a lowercase p. Okay, so we've got base price. I don't remember seeing base price in the environment variables. I thought it was called price. So, all right, let's just, well, let's merge it and then we'll play around with it. Thank them. We really appreciate contributions from contributors. So if you're curious, this is a great place to start helping out and contributing. So I'm going to merge. That's actually, let's work from here. So let's see. So we want to a little branch that adds our smoke test. If SSH wants to work. Okay. All right, so we'll head over here and I probably shouldn't have added that. I can remove in the next change. And I think all this is kind of just default our spec init stuff, and then this kind of follows the same pattern that we already had. And our current like smoke test is super small, so that should be fine. And we like to assign like this with the R question mark. That kind of like assigns to a specific person. And so let's see. Okay. I think I'm actually just going to merge that since I'm feeling confident about that. We can take this checkout full. All right. Okay, so now we've got an updated master. Let me check out their branch from the pull request here, and we can play around from there. So I think since it's on, I wonder if I need a different format there to check that out. What is this? Maybe, no. How do I check out a fork? I need to like, oh, do I have to go pull their fork or something? I don't know if I've ever tried to do this. All right, let's just merge it, and then we'll mess around with it directly from master. Okay. All right, so this is safe because we haven't edited CLI.json to include Go, so no one installing the sample at this time is actually going to be impacted by that change. So let's jump into client and server, and then we'll go to server go main.go. This looks good. I think usually in Stripe samples we name these server, so I'm going to rename this to server.go, and then let's take a look here. So instead of running our server from Ruby, we want to run it from Go. Go run server. Didn't work with our environment file. Go run server. Yep. Okay. And let's try running our smoke test that we just created. Spec, and we have a failure. Okay, good. This is great. So okay, so let's kind of see here. Need to get a little organized. All right, so the very first thing I'm going to do is actually, yeah, how can we do this so we're doing it kind of carefully? So config is the very first one that we ran, and that's the first one I believe that crashed, right? Yeah. So unit amount is what we want to return from config. Another thing here that I noticed is that serve config. Okay. So we what I want to do is add the routes in order that they are added in the main function, so that we are rendering like the same. So it's like easy to read through. So you can read like, okay, get config, and then we see serve config, and then we have get checkout, and then we have get checkout. So this one I would actually rename to like handle config, handle checkout session, handle create checkout session. Okay, and then we have the handle webhook. All right, so then we have serve config, handle config. All right, so we're going to respond, instead of respond, let me refresh my memory here. So in Go here, how does this work? All right, so we want to like actually, yeah. So handle config is actually going to be very similar to what we have in that example. It always trips me up working in Go with all those tabs. So I like to retab, and then at the end I'll call Go format to like reset all the formatting. And instead of creating this config struct at the top, I'm just going to do an inline. I'm going to write an inline struct so that we can set the public key, base price, and currency. And we want to make sure that again those match what we're testing in the spec. So we want that to be public key, unit amount, and currency, just like that. So public key, unit amount, and currency. Public key should be public key, unit amount, and currency. And I don't know if unit amount is set as a string or like an int64. So let's set it as int64 just for now. And then if we need to work with it as a string, we can do that. So public key, and that should be our publishable key. That also works. Unit amount and currency. All right, so let's look at where these come from for the other languages. So the config here. First, we fetch the price. We fetch the price in config. Okay, so instead of passing these back, when we write the JSON, we want to like fetch a price, and then use its unit amount and currency. Okay, so in order to fetch a price in Go, I can say Go, let's see, no, stripe.com/docs/API/prices, and there should be like the API reference for retrieving a price in here somewhere. Let's see. So intro width, what's up? How's it going? Can we create a checkout session and mark it as complete somehow in a test suite without the front end? There's a tool with Stripe CLI called Stripe Trigger that allows you to say Stripe Trigger checkout session completed, and that will hit some private APIs that will walk through and mark it as completed. And yeah, you could totally do that. In fact, like that's interesting. Wondering if we should try to play around with that as part of our spec here. But yeah, definitely something related to the stream. Thanks for asking. And yeah, you would in practice you would use like Stripe trigger checkout.session.completed, and that would fire all of the requests in the background to result in a checkout session completed event, including hitting some private APIs. But this would sort of like simulate and walk through the entire checkout process so that you didn't have to do it. So that could definitely be helpful for the thing that you're looking at, Intrawit. Thanks for asking. Cool that people are coming on the stream. Very cool. All right, so we've got our price we have to fetch. So we want to look at retrieve price, and we're working in Go right now. So let's head over to this and just copy these. Okay, so in this case, the ID of the price is again stored in the environment variable. So I think in Go we say something like os.getEnv, and we pass in the name of the environment variable, and then we should get back the price as P there. So the unit amount here, I believe we can say P dot unit amount, and then currency should be something like P dot currency. All right, so let's go back over here, CD checkout, client and server, go. Okay, go run server. Packet, go run server.go. Okay, cool. Comment these out. Go run server.go, undefined price. we need to use price here, so we can import that. And let's see, doesn't contain package price. So I think we need 751 or something. Let's go. Let's see. So go mod tidy, go mod vendor, go. Doesn't contain price. It should totally contain price. But I think we might need to say V71. So what are we doing in billing here? Yep. So V71, I think, is when we, yeah. So we have like an upgrade that happened around that time. And I have to do that for the top level version also. Okay. Let's try this again. Okay, undefined write JSON. That's because I wrote that function over here. Wait, no, we didn't write the function. We want a little helper here for write JSON. And I think in billing, we put at the bottom where we have these three helpers. And I want to stay consistent across samples. So I'm going to dump those in here just so that they're exactly the same. All of these are just helpers for simplifying the process of writing out the JSON. So we're kind of just like serializing to JSON and then making sure it's like the right shape of a string and stuff and spitting it back. Same with error. We want to make sure that the errors are being printed in a consistent way. So that's there. Okay, what's next? So bytes, IO, and response. Error response. I didn't grab that. Where is that? Error response. Yeah, so this thing we want. And we can put this right above these, I believe. Well, actually, no, let's put those right under our main function because I think we're going to need these in a couple other places. So these are just some structs that tell us the shape of the error message that we're returning. And p.currency. Okay, so in Stripe Go, we have stripe.currency, which wraps up currency. And so that, because we have a type, we have like sort of a defined type for currency. It's not a string. It is a type of string, but it's not itself a string. So in order to return that back to the client, we need to make this a string. So I think we just have to cast to string, maybe. Let's see. Okay, look at that. Allow. All right, so server is running. Run our test. And it looks like we got the JSON from config, and that's sweet. And now we're failing at create checkout session. So that's super awesome. So let's go do that next. All right, so yeah, this is our handle config function. Isn't that nice? Okay, so we've got handle config. And we're returning all the right stuff. And we no longer need this because we're just sort of like inlining the shape of the response here with this struct and returning all of the jazz that we need to make that work. All right, so let's go to the next one here. So we'll work on handle checkout session. So we've got handle config. Now let's write, oh, we don't even have a handle checkout session. Okay, so we need to do that. Okay, I have a snippet for this, but I can't remember what it is. Let's see. So I really love Vim, and I love these snippets that you can write with Snipmate. And it looks like I don't actually have snippets for this that are not Echo for creating just simple sort of functions that work with net HTTP. So we'll say handle checkout session. I think lines up with this handle checkout session. Let's make sure those names are the same. They are. Okay, so again, we want to assert that this is a GET request. This is the route that's hit when we're retrieving the checkout session after successful checkout to just like show the checkout session to the customer. Intro it, incoming session completed webhook processing logic. Can that use client ref ID as needed? Yes, totally can. The incoming checkout. So when you receive a checkout or a webhook event for the checkout session completed event, it should include the client reference ID. So okay, yeah. So the question is, test webhooks generated from the CLI can't be simulated for metadata. All right, that's a cool question. Let's go look at that. So in the Stripe CLI, here, it uses triggers. So when you say Stripe trigger checkout session completed, it's actually using this we call it a fixture. So it's a JSON fixture that shows all of the different API requests to make. So the very first one is going to make a post request to V1 checkout sessions. So you could actually come in here and modify the params to include some metadata if you wanted as part of like testing webhooks. So you could even make a copy of this. So if we go like this, raw, come over here and wget this thing, and then open up checkout.session completed event, and then come in here and say like, okay, I actually want to use metadata, and I'm going to set, I usually use metadata and set maybe the invoice ID or something, invoice, which is like whatever your internal invoice ID is. Let's say it's 12345 or something. And this could be like your test mode invoice ID or whatever, right? So we kind of just modify the params that are going to be sent as the post request, as part of the post request. And then you can say Stripe, Stripe fixture, and then pass in your newly modified checkout session completed thing. And in another tab, I'll just say like Stripe listen -j, so we can see the output of the JSON. And when I run that, we'll have all these events fire. But then if we check out the, or if we take a look at the events that are coming in, the one that we're most interested in is actually, this is hard to read. So let me do -e, I believe, checkout.session. Wait, let's see. Stripe listen. Let's see. We want to get just the events. Yeah. Okay. So it's -e. So Stripe listen -j-e checkout session completed, and that should only listen to or only listen for checkout session completed events. Intro it. Yeah. Whoa. It is super cool. So let's say Stripe fixtures checkout session completed. That'll fire all those things, and we should only see the JSON for the checkout session completed event. Now, if we dig through here, I think we should see the metadata. Boom, there we go. So there's the metadata for the invoice. Same thing with client reference ID, I believe. So you should be able to say like checkout session completed here and say client reference ID is, ABC123 or something. And now if we run that, we should get these. So, oh, that's the first one. And client reference ID, ABC123. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Can we use this modifying fixtures outside of the CLI somehow, like in the test suite? So possibly, we're working on testing right now. If you haven't already, at Stripe Dev, let's see. So Twitter, on Twitter, we just actually asked for some feedback from folks about testing. So here, what I would totally recommend is dropping in your questions and thoughts into this thread about testing, and I think it's definitely something that we can improve. And we're really looking for some solid feedback here, and we recognize that it's like pretty difficult to test this stuff. So yeah, we totally like your feedback there. So hopefully that's helpful, intro wit. Cool. So back over here, we've got our handle checkout session, which again is going to be just used to like retrieve the checkout session and show when we're on the success page. So this is kind of like at the end of the process. And let's look what that looks like. In Ruby, we are saying checkout session. So we're setting content type JSON. We grab the session ID out of the query string params, which is passed in as session ID. And then we use it with checkout session retrieve. So in the query params, so how do I do that again? Let's see here. I'm trying to remember in Go, how do we take stuff off of the query string? Those are all post requests, post requests, post requests. That's all going to be like on the body. This is, that's the only one we have here. Okay, so golang net HTTP query string. I totally forget how this works. It's probably just got query or something. Maybe see here. Request.url.query. Okay, let's just play with that and see if we can get that. So our request is coming in as r.u.query session ID. Try to just print it out for now. And then we need to, let's see, write JSON. And what is the structure of this JSON? Well, if we pop over here, it looks like we're just sending back the whole session. So in fact, I think I can just say s or session once we have the session variable. So session.get. We're going to need to pass in the ID, session ID. Okay, what is this? Oh, right. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Syntax Highlighter. Syntastic. This is Syntastic. Very cool. Cool. Yeah, intro it. Happy to help. Hopefully that was useful. Cool. Let's see. All right. So maybe this is working. Let's restart the server and poke at it with curl. What is our error here? Undefined s, but s is not defined. It's here. What's going on? Not enough arguments to session get. Probably need like session gets comma null since I'm not passing anything else. Nil. Okay. Nope. Undefined s on 83. 83 is right here. We're trying to set s. Oh yeah. Okay. Thank you. Not use session ID type string array as type string in argument to get. Okay. I guess we're going to get back a list here. I don't know. Let's just try to do this. Go away, errors. Go away. Okay, so curl-x get. Okay. And if I do like session ID equals 1, 2, 3. What is that printing out? Okay, yeah, array 1, 2, 3. Okay, so this is this really what I want to do? Like, is that really how it works? You have to like index into the array. I thought there was an easier way. Is there not an easier way? HTTP with Go. Does anybody know? Golang, how to get to query string parameters other than this way. I was just reading that. Is it just like .get or something. So, okay, has a query object, has values that are a map to array of strings. Huh. What is this? You can also call form value to key. Request.form. All right. Yeah, so this is what I was thinking. Okay, so .get, let's try that. Yeah. Oh, this returns just one value. Oh. Okay, run. All right, 1, 2, 3. Cool. So that looks like that's working as expected. Now we want it to like actually get the session and return it. So let's see if we can get that working. So we are running the server. We want this to be a real checkout session ID. So let's say, well, we just did this walkthrough earlier. So we have a checkout session ID there. We can use that here. And all right, look at that. Hey, we got back our checkout session. That looks cool. That looks good. All right, so that, I think that might be working. Let's give our test a run and see that we are doing the right. Oh, right. We hadn't actually implemented a test for that route, but yeah, I believe that's working as expected now that we've kind of poked at it. Okay, so now let's see. Let's go on to the next route here, which is create checkout session. So here we have handle create checkout session. And let's see. So we do want to receive some quantity as post body. So I think this might be okay. But I'm going to call it checkout session create request. Checkout session create request, just to be a little bit more explicit there. And then, so we deserialize, that's good. And then we have the domain URL. The environment variable names here for domain are a little confusing, and it does include the scheme. So it's like HTTPS : / whatever. That's like part of the environment variable. And then we're getting the currency off of the environment variable. For some reason, I thought that we were doing something different over here with the currency. So we actually didn't need the currency over there. All right, let's kill that just in case. And then the price, again, was just an environment variable for price. So here I'm going to say price, no, P. No, what do we need this for? We need it for the line items that we're going to create later. So I'm just going to use, yeah, I'm going to use the environment variable directly. Create a new checkout session for the order. Yeah, so it's all the same comment as we have in the other example. So that all looks good, I think. And then down here, the name. Do we need the name? Asha photo. I don't think we need the name anywhere. We shouldn't have to set our key again. I believe we should have set that earlier. Okay. And then we should just be creating the checkout session. So we have our params here. So payment method types, card, and that should be all that we are supporting just for this sample. You can also pass, like in practice, you can pass Alipay or Ideal or a whole bunch of other payment methods here, which is super cool. All right, so then the line items is just quantity and price. So it should just be quantity and price. So amount is deprecated. This actually might have been implemented before amount or before price came out. So we just need, what is it again? Quantity and price. So we have quantity at the top, and then we have price. And price should be the ID of the price, the string ID of the price. So we are grabbing the quantity off of the request, and then we want the price to be based on the ID of the price that's in the environment variable. So I think we want to say stripe.string, and then we want to say os.getEnv price. here. And this should fetch the price out of the environment variables, and then stripe.string here. Okay, so I want to go check out this checkout session line items params in the docs for Stripe Go. So github.com/stripe go. Oops, not Stripe Go, because I just want to make sure that this is, yep, so we have checkout session. So checkout session.go should have a checkout session line items params. Checkout session line item params. And I wanted to check that the quantity, okay, so the quantity is in int64. So we want to make sure that we're passing an int64 here, and that, so we can say stripe.int64 to sort of wrap that up. And can't remember if we need to sort of like dereference that or not yet. So what else we've got? So we've got success, cancel, payment method types, mode. Success, cancel, payment method types, mode is stripe.string payment. Let's see if we have a mode thing. So mode, checkout session mode payment. So we want to say, like, here we want to say stripe.checkout session mode payment, I believe. I don't know if we have to convert this to string or not. It might just be this, possibly. All right, so then we have the checkout session and an error. We do want to probably like keep track of that error for sure. And then the response is this thing, and we're saying respond. So instead of respond, I'm going to use our little write JSON helper. And so let's see. So we want to say write JSON, and we're going to say W, and then we can just use this, reuse this inline struct, and then respond with the session ID being equal to that s.id that we just created earlier. I can't remember if these, according to Go format, need. Oh, right. So in the struct, it doesn't have it, but in the actual instantiation of that struct, it should have it. Like in the struct definition here, we don't have trailing comma, but down here we do. All right. Well, let's see how that goes. Restart the server. Can't. Okay, so we imported and didn't use string convert. That's cool. What else didn't we use? Cannot pass that as a string. Okay, so instead of just passing the payment mode like that, I think we have to say stripe.string and wrap it. All right, let's see this again. Oh, you know what? This is odd, but you have to I think you have to cast it and then pass it. Yeah, okay. So yeah, and then I don't think we need to dereference that. And we are good. Cool. So let's call, we want to call curl to say create checkout session. And instead of a get, we're passing a post. And we got back error while creating the checkout session, invalid integer has to be at least 1. Okay, right, because we didn't pass a quantity here, which needs to be 1. Cool, and we got back a checkout session ID. Sweet. Okay, that's very cool. Let's run our test here, and bingo, bingo, bango. All right, so at least our smoke test is working. For fun, let's crack open localhost 4242 and give it a spin. So the price looks right, and we are redirected to checkout. See what's going on here. There we go. See that the redirect back works and everything. Okay, cool. And look at that. Awesome. So we our payment succeeded. That is awesome. That's so great. We did make a whole bunch of changes, so that's all right. We're kind of upgrading it too in the process. which is pretty sweet. Where did we not use chai? All right, so instead of file server for serving static file assets. Okay, so how did we do that over here? We have instead http.handle. Okay, so I'm going to follow this pattern and kind of work through the differences between just using NetHTTP and chai here. So instead of using the router there, I'm just going to use HTTP. Oh, we didn't even re-enable that. All right, so we've got to play around and test webhooks to make sure those are working as expected too. But for now, we want to have our little handler for static assets. We want to make sure that go.env is loading. That's fine. Setting our secret key. That's cool. And then we want HTTP. And then instead of .get, it's called handle func. So yeah, so I guess for chai, it's a little nice because you just say .get or .post. You define the HTTP method when you're setting up the router, and instead we are just kind of like asserting that it's the right HTTP method when it's coming in, which is also okay. And we'll cut down on our dependencies a little bit. For samples, it's nice to not have to like depend on too many third parties. So, and down here, what do we got? Okay, we're also printing these out. How is the logger set up? HTTP listen and serve 4242. Oh, actually, you know what? I think there's also like this cool trick where you can say localhost 4242, and then I think it doesn't. And then it doesn't prompt you or something. There's like some special thing about that version. So let's see what's going on here. Handle webhook. Okay, so webhook called something different. Let's kill this file server thing. Respond. Okay, so they implemented respond. I thought that might have been something from chai, but that's all right. Checkout session. So they did have this get checkout session thing. And okay, so they already had some of this. I just like re-implemented it without seeing it. Probably should have done like a more thorough investigation of how all this stuff is set up. So handle webhook. All right, what's going on with that? Let's see. So our webhook handler in billing looks like this. So we read the body, we construct the event, and we are doing signature verification as part of that. So I'm just going to grab the webhook handler for billing and reuse that here in this code. And then we can update it to set the checkout session completed event, which is really the only one that we care about. Okay, so we've got our handle webhook, receiving a post request and decoding and deserializing and whatever. So, all right. Okay, so let's go through this a little bit more carefully here. I think we want to just delete those. And okay. So we've got our package main. We're doing a bunch of import statements. We have this top level function where we're defining some routes with just net HTTP. And we have our error response. We're not actually making use of these yet, but we should go back through and probably add some tests that check for errors. And then here we're doing handle config, which is just getting some basic config out of environment variables and fetching a price. Then we're saying handle checkout session, which is retrieving the checkout session from Stripe and then returning that entire thing as JSON. Here we're handling the create of a checkout session. And that is working as expected. We do have some error handling there. Instead of that http.error, we want to call write JSON error message. Are we doing that over here though? I don't think we're not handling errors very well in this sample. So I'm gonna leave that as a future exercise. Handle webhook. We'll test webhooks and then we'll call it a day here for the stream. But yeah, really hoping this is useful to folks. And again, really appreciate the contributions to Stripe sample here. So we can just say like checkout session completed, and yep. Okay. So the webhook handler here, we'll go through it. So we're just like making sure that it's a post request, and then we are reading all of the raw body. We don't want to decode or deserialize anything because we don't want it to change any shape. When we call construct event, we need to verify that the signature matches the request body, and it has to be like unaltered, basically, just the kind of the exact raw request body, and that will match what we have here in the Stripe signature, and the body should match exactly the signed request from Stripe. So we want to make sure that we're reading in the raw body of the request when we're deserializing that for the webhook handler, so that we can confirm that it was in fact directly from Stripe and not from some third party. Okay, so then we're just checking that the event type is session completed, and then we could grab the checkout session and print out IDs and such, but we'll keep this nice and simple for now. And then the display items were actually removed in a recent Mark Evans, welcome. Yeah, so display items were removed in a recent API version. So we're going to remove this completely. And instead, we want to make sure we're using line items. So that's cool. So let's see. So I'm going to, so we want to test webhooks out. So what we're going to do is set up a listener with Stripe Listen, and then we'll just kind of go through the flow again. So is this working? Okay, imported and not used strings, cool. And undefined customer. Was this part of the webhook handler? It was. We're grabbing, okay, so we're making a GET request for the customer. Yeah, let's just remove that from the webhook handler and just trying to make sure that this checkout session completed is logged when we receive the webhook event. Undefined R, where are you? What line? 33. Right, so listen and serve for mid HTTP looks like listen and serve for the address and then nil, if that works. And we didn't notice that we didn't get the prompt there. Okay, so we're able to create checkout sessions. So what I wanted to do was say Stripe listen forward to localhost 4242/webhook. And that should set up a direct connection between Stripe and my local machine. When events happen on my Stripe account, they'll be delivered to the local machine and forwarded to that local webhook server. And then I can come over here and say, let's say Stripe trigger checkout.session.completed, which will create a checkout session and kind of walk through the entire flow, and then should deliver the checkout.session completed event to our web server, which is the event that we're looking for. And so we're expecting that when I go to this tab, we're going to call our shots. When we go to this tab, it should have printed out that we completed that checkout session as expected. And we got a whole bunch of output. That's a little unexpected. I thought we would just get one of those. So what's going on here is, let's see. Oh, we're saying that if the event type is not checkout session completed, then log it out and return. But we want to check that it is, and if it is, then we might want to do something with that. And so we'll just call this good, and then say write JSON at the end, and we'll pass in struct. And we don't actually want to pass anything back. We just want to kind of tell Stripe, the Stripe webhook, that we're happy with what we received. So I think I might be able to just say nil here, actually. Okay. In fact, we were already sending 200s back, so it is what it is. But okay. So let's we've restarted the server. We've got our listener running again. We'll fire that checkout session completed event again, which should deliver the events to our local machine and print them out. And we got just one log statement that time, which is good. Let's run our test one more time just for sanity, and then we can kind of like walk through the flow. All right, we've got our test that's passing. Let's go to localhost 4242. And I showed Introwit's comment a long time ago, and I forgot to hide it. So yes, that was a question. Hide, okay. And then Mark Evans came in here and said, "Awesome, glad I found it." So hi, thank you. If you have any questions, yeah, feel free to drop them in the chat. We're getting pretty close here to wrapping up, but we have implemented a golang server for the Stripe checkout sample. So actually, yeah, let's go through the entire thing so that we can make sure that it works here. Also, I would invite you to follow on all the things. Yeah, I would love to be friends with you. Let's be friends. Okay, so then as part of finishing this payment process, we should receive that webhook notification again in the terminal. So payment succeeded. Let's go check and make sure that we got that log statement, and we did, and we're now logging out that checkout session ID. So that's this is cool. This is great. I'm really happy with this, and we'll just go mod tidy and go mod vendor. And then I want to highlight the entire thing and format it. And then yeah, I think we're good with go. Refactor from chai to use net HTTP on Go server. Okay. Push that up to Stripe samples. And all right, so now that we have done that, we should see a brand new in the client and server directory under server, we now have a Go server that should work with our Stripe sample for checkout for one-time payments. So there's one other thing that we need to do here, and that is from the root of the sample directory, we have like this little config that says what's supported in the CLI and what's not. It's in this CLI.json file, so we'll jump in there and edit that too, so that we can just say that, hey, Go is now supported. Mark Evans, I think I'm saying that right. So apologies if I'm not, but please let me know. He says here, love to connect on Swift, Firebase, and Stripe. Yes, that would be awesome. We have some stuff in the works for Firebase and Stripe and iOS. I don't know if they're using Swift UI, but totally would be down to connect. I think that would be super helpful for folks. So that is a really exciting combination, and yeah, that would be really cool to have a sample for, and at least if not like videos and stuff. So cool. So we're going to add to the integrations here. So for the servers, we now have Go. So we're going to add Go here. Add Go to CLI.json. All right. How's everyone feeling? We've got 2 people are watching live. We're an hour deep into this. I'm wondering if we should end this broadcast and then maybe start another separate one where we can add the same server but for .NET. Yeah, I think if we can have folks come back, we'll go take a little break. We'll get some water, some sustenance, and then we can switch over to .NET. So I will see y'all shortly. See you in a bit.